Let's talk about getting feedback. So last week I did a video on reviewing my own reviews, and it's a good exercise. I recommend it. Go and watch the video if you haven't. But I wanted to specifically talk about how to take feedback, because as I'm sure all of you understand, it's a pretty big issue. My name is Seth. I'm a full-time fantasy author, and I make these videos because there are a lot of authors out there who aren't making it, and I don't want you to be one of them. So over my career, I've written 26 books now. They keep coming, and I've published most of them. It's not an exaggeration to say that I've literally written millions of words over my career. And I've sold more than 500,000 books. My average rating on Amazon is 4.7 stars, so people like my books. And on top of that, I get messages every week from people telling me how much they're enjoying my books and wondering when the next one is coming. So why is it that a comment about how one of my books is slow just like shreds my heart? I don't say all of this stuff to highlight how great an author I am. Instead, what I want to highlight is how the challenge of receiving feedback literally never changes. No matter how good you are, no matter how long you've been at it, no matter how much success you have, the sting of a negative comment or a bad review is not going to go away. There's a reason that famous authors are known for getting on Twitter and blasting people because they didn't like their review or they didn't appreciate their comment. The reality is that art is art. Art is a highly personal thing. When I pour myself out into my story and then share it with other people, I'm exposing a piece of myself. I'm making myself vulnerable to other people's thoughts and opinions on the art that I create. And that never changes. I'm never going to be immune to that painful feeling of somebody else saying, that's bad. The reality is that feedback is just really hard. And it's actually even harder when it's something that you feel confident about. I feel very confident in my writing, and I should, for all of the reasons that I listed at the beginning of this video, and more. I've built, through my actions, a pretty substantial resume for my writing career. I'm doing well, but I still feel that jab when I get a comment. Now, some authors choose to hold themselves up. They choose to just sort of withdraw from any sort of public feedback, and they just don't read their comments, and they don't look at what people are saying. They don't read reviews, and they just say, you know what? I know that I'm good at what I do. I'm successful in my career, and I'm just going to continue on this path, regardless of what anybody says. And, there is something to be said for that. There is something to be said for distancing yourself from the court of public opinion. Because the reality is that the court of public opinion is almost always unhelpful. However, there is one area in which the court of public opinion is incredibly helpful. It's incredibly helpful in that it helps you gain a broader perspective. One of the really challenging things about art is that it's personal. And so, as a result, it's sort of locked into our own perspective. And no matter how wide our perspective might be, the reality is that it is still narrow. There's only so much that one person can see. And almost invariably, when I create something and I give it to somebody else, they see something different because their perspective is different. And often, they'll read what I've written and say, oh, this is really good, except I noticed this. And I'll think to myself, how on earth did I miss that? It seems so obvious now that somebody has said it, but I just completely missed it. Or I forgot about that detail entirely. Sometimes entire plots. Like, I've written books and I've gotten to the end and somebody was like, hey, what about this whole plot, which you introduced at the end of last book and then you never mention again? And I go, ooh, somehow, because my perspective is narrow and I was so focused on the art that I was creating, I just missed that piece of the bigger picture. So feedback from the public gives us perspective that we wouldn't otherwise have. And this presents a problem because, as we've already established, sometimes that feedback really hurts. Sometimes we hear it and we go, oh, I thought I was better at this. I thought I was good at this. Sometimes it just reinforces a doubt that we already had about ourselves. And that's tough. That's really hard to overcome. There is, however, a middle ground. If you can learn to harden yourself to what people are saying, if you can learn to distance yourself from the art that you've created, it is possible to pursue both paths. To pursue the path of, I'm going to make the art that I want to make, and I'm going to listen to what other people say, get their feedback, and I'm going to apply what is helpful to me. It requires judgment. It requires wisdom in understanding what is helpful feedback and what is not helpful feedback. What is simply subjective opinion and what is objective truth. What is one person's preference versus an actual failing. And learning to winnow this advice, learning to pick through it and understand what is helpful and what is not helpful takes time. It takes experience. And it takes being willing to feel that pain, that heart stab when you read something negative about something that you have poured your life into. One of my favorite ideas is that the best way to gain confidence is not through positive affirmation. We don't tell ourselves, I'm good at this. Instead, we outwork our self-doubt. If you put your mind to it and you work hard, you will have achievement. And you can stack those achievements, however small, to outweigh the self-doubt. So when I get a review now that says, hey, this book is boring, the plot doesn't move at all, it's just slow, I didn't really like it. And I got some of those reviews actually on my last book. Again, if you go back and watch that video of me reviewing reviews, that's one of the reviews that I read. But when I compare that to the overall rating of the book, what other people are saying about it, how hard I worked on it, how well it's selling, all of those other factors help me balance that out. And I can say, okay, this is somebody's opinion. They do have feelings about it, but it might just be that the pacing isn't for them. It might just be that this isn't to their preference. I'm able to weigh that advice, and instead of falling into the trap of changing my whole style of writing just because somebody said something mean about it, I can weigh it against what I've already done, what I've already achieved. And then I can take it and I can use it and I can apply it in a constructive way.